Hello and welcome to a new episode of Geek Lunch Me. I'm your host Chris, as usual. Now, so we're sort of in May at the moment. We're entering the big summer blockbuster season of movies, which seems to get earlier and earlier every year. So we've just had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 hitting cinemas all around the world. What I want to do in this episode is take a look at the box office of the MCU. There's been a lot of talk recently that Marvel's got a big problem. Superhero fatigue is this little buzzword that keeps rearing its ugly head yet again. So I wanted to go back to the beginning and go through all the phases, see what the box office was doing, just see how much trouble is Marvel really in, if indeed they are in trouble. Is it just the usual hyperbole, trolls on the internet, just trying to make things appear worse than they are. Don't forget, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up. Helps out a great deal, helps people see the video more. If you're not already subscribed, why not mash that subscribe button? We would love to have you as a subscriber. So let's take a look at the box office of the MCU, see if we can identify any underlying trends and any factors that would significantly affecting the box office currently. So we start at the beginning with Iron Man. Hard to believe, what was it, 11, 12 years ago now. Iron Man was pretty much an unknown quantity outside of comic book stores. Robert Downey Jr. was not the big star we know him as today. It was a bit of a gamble, but he came in with a solid 586 million worldwide gross. Now all of these grosses are in US dollars. I've rounded them up or down just to make it a bit easier. But yeah, an absolutely solid start for the MCU for such a sort of unknown quantity. We then dip slightly with the Incredible Hulk, the Ed Norton iteration. 265 million, not a massive hit. I think people seem to forget that the MCU was and the Avengers was not a guaranteed thing, and the Hulk was not very well received critically or financially particularly. So it's easy to see why Marvel went straight back to the source. And Iron Man 2 being the next film, 624 million. So more than the first one took, but still we're not up in the stratosphere yet of huge blockbuster status. But 624 million, nothing to be sniffed at. Straight on into Thor, again, introduction of a new character yet again, and by now they're starting to incorporate elements of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Black Widow and Hawkeye all appearing as well. 449 mil, not as much as the original Iron Man, but things are sort of heading in, generally in the right direction. Then we get Captain America, the First Avenger, a film I absolutely love because I love all that pulp adventure. As you know, you've seen the channel before, 370 mil. So, Steve Rogers' first outing was not, the huge, massive success that, the later films would become. I mean, only obviously say in this first phase, the Incredible Hulk had a lower box office. And then, of course, we go into the Avengers, and they all come together, and it works out great for Marvel. $1.5 billion straight away. That's their first really big, cash cow, and they can see that the hard work has paid off, putting everyone together in the same film. And it helps that it was a great film as well. It got good reviews, people loved it. Yeah, $1.5 billion straight away. We go into phase 2, and again, they go straight back to, they know what works, Iron Man 3. And even though the quality dipped, I think people tend to agree that, 1.2 billion. So that Avengers effect is working there. Thor: The Dark World, sort of commonly held to be one of the lesser MCU movies, but still 645 mil. So, a big increase on Thor, on the original Thor's take. And then we get Captain America: Winter Soldier, 740 mil. People loved Cap in the Avengers, and Winter Soldier. The Russo brothers did a fantastic job on it. People loved it. Not surprising that they went on, to be given the job of the Infinity War, and not surprising that Winter Soldier has almost doubled, the first Avengers take. Then you get Guardians of the Galaxy, brand new heroes. Even people outside of comic book stores that didn't have a clue who they were. But, James Gunn made a fantastic movie, 773 million, its final worldwide gross. So with the exception of Iron Man 3, that's the biggest gross so far of a non-Avengers movie. We then, of course, go straight into Avengers Age of Ultron, 1.4 billion. So not quite as much as the first Avengers. The film definitely wasn't as good, as the original Avengers movie, but still, 1.4 billion. Nothing to be sniffed at there at all. And then just finishing off the phase with Ant-Man, a much smaller film, introduction of a new character, 519 mil. Again, not huge, massive, amounts of money that some of the other films are now taking, but for that type of film, perfectly fine. On into phase 3, Captain America Civil War, 1.15 billion. So the Cap movies are now up there with the Avengers movies, pretty much. Yes, Civil War, you could say it was pretty much Avengers, 2.5. Pretty much everyone was in there, minus Hulk and Thor. But we got Vision was added in, and War Machine, and obviously Spidey turned up. So not surprised to see Civil War doing huge numbers. We then get Doctor Strange introduction, 678 million. Again, a good total for a new character coming in. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, 864 mil. So, surpassing the take of the original and, cementing them as, some of the most popular MCU characters. Spider-Man Homecoming, 880 mil. Everyone loves Spider-Man. Everyone loved him in Civil War, and Homecoming, did the business. And then Thor Ragnarok, in comes Taika Waititi with a different slant on Thor, bringing in Hulk as well. Did great guns, 855 million, a very respectable total there. And obviously don't forget, we're now ramping up towards, the Infinity War. There's more and more stuff in the movie sort of linking these things together, and we know that Thanos is coming shortly. We then get the absolute juggernaut of Black Panther, 1.3 billion, far and away the biggest take of the introductory film of a solo hero. And then bang, Infinity War, $2 billion. By this point, the MCU is pretty much a cash printing machine. Pretty much everybody went to see Infinity War. The box office take shows that out. It's a 4-quadrant movie, men, women, children and old people. You can't argue with box office numbers like that, and obviously just setting people up for the next part. We then get Ant-Man and the Wasp, so obviously a smaller take again, 623 mil, smaller film, but over 100 million increase on the original Ant-Man. And then in comes flying Captain Marvel, 1.1 billion. Again, huge numbers, for the introduction of a new character. Obviously, by this point, people knew that she was going to play a part in Endgame. Just crazy numbers now for most of the Marvel movies, and they're only going to get crazier with Avengers Endgame. 2.8 billion, one of the highest grossing films of all time. I remember that opening weekend, what was over 300 million in the States. Absolutely ludicrous. Every man and his dog went to see Endgame several times. That's the only way you get to those sort of numbers. Absolutely spectacular. And then riding, on the crest of that, Spider-Man Far From Home, another 1.1 billion. Spidey's now, his solo films are now up in the billions as well. It can be easy to forget, looking at these figures, just how rare it is, for movies to make over $1 billion, and what a success that is. So at this point, Marvel is absolutely flying high. They can do no wrong. But then, of course, we get the global threat that even the Avengers could not have foreseen. COVID arrives and absolutely, obviously, decimates the box office. Everything shuts down for a while. So obviously, we have to take that into account when looking at Phase 4. The other thing we need to take into account is Disney Plus also starts at this time, obviously the Disney streaming service. And it becomes apparent very quickly that movies, once they've been out of cinema, even for only a few months, will then go straight to Disney Plus, which is obviously going to affect their box office. So Phase 4, kicks off in the middle of the pandemic. Black Widow, 380 mil. Obviously, so we're now looking at a lot smaller figures. Most cinemas around the world are not even open. And I think Black Widow was the first one that went to Disney Plus at a premium price. But obviously, that's going to affect the box office. You've got people at that time who are not willing to go out, or maybe even the cinemas are not open near them. So, obviously, even though Black Widow was a big character, you've also got to factor in the fact that, she died. So this is a prequel film, which is the first sort of time that Marvel have done that. Obviously COVID being the big underlying factor here. One of a much smaller take than we've been seeing on the Marvel films up till that point. Then we get Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, 432 mil. Again, by this point, not all cinemas around the world were open, but for the under circumstances it was released, 432 mil for a brand new character. not bad at all. Then we get the Eternals, 402 million. The film wasn't received particularly well. It still looked upon as not one of the MCU's greatest entries, and the pandemic was still in effect in some places at this time. So obviously the box office is looking down. But then it rebounds straight back up. Spidey's back. No Way Home, 1.9 billion. The film was massively well received, and obviously we had Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield turning up from the other multiverse versions of Spidey. And people went crazy for it. 1.9 bill for a Spider-Man movie, showing that the box office, if the quality was there, it was definitely going to rebound after the pandemic. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness next, and again 956 million, and that's not a bad take at all, especially when you consider a lot of people seem to not like that movie. I thought it was perfectly fine, not up there with some of the MCU's best, but certainly not the sort of train wreck some people tried to make it out to be. But yeah, 956 mil, not bad at all. But it's possible Marvel might have been expecting even more money than that. This phase was touted as the big multiverse phase. Doctor Strange had become a really popular character after Infinity War and Endgame. They may have been expecting that to get over the billion mark, I would have thought. So maybe in their eyes, things were not going as well as they had previously. Then we got Thor, Love and Thunder, film not very well received critically, 761 million, so down on Ragnarok. Still not a bad haul by any stretch of the imagination, but you want your numbers to be going up when you've got popular characters, in new movies. You certainly don't want to see a downward trajectory, which then continued. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, 859 million, so down quite a bit from the first Black Panther. Now, there's also, obviously you've got the fact that Chadwick Boseman had passed away, so they had to change the story significantly. But yes, I suspect that was again probably a bit of a disappointment for Disney. We're probably expecting probably over the $1 billion again on Wakanda Forever. So bringing us right up to date with Phase 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and this is especially where obviously all these rumours of Disney and Marvel being in trouble. 476 million. Yes, it could be argued that the film is still playing maybe on some screens around the world, but as I record this today, it hits Disney Plus. That's pretty much going to wipe out any money left, if indeed it is still playing anywhere. 476 million, less than what the first film made. So that is, that's big problems, especially as it was, hyped again as a big sort of main introduction of Kang and sort of more multiverse shenanigans that are going to be, the big part of this and the next phase. One of the issues was after its opening weekend, which was okay, but nothing great. It had a 69% drop into its second weekend, which is large, especially for that type of blockbuster movie. Which then obviously leads into its total gross not being massive. I was surprised by a lot of the negative reviews. I didn't think it was a bad film at all. I thought it was another fun Ant-Man adventure. It obviously wasn't hitting with audiences worldwide. And then we come absolutely bang up to date, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, so very interesting to see what happened with this. It's opening 118 million in the States. So again, not a huge opening, certainly down on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And it was looking again like the MCU was in quite a bit of trouble because, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was getting good reviews. They're incredibly popular characters. Obviously, their first two films had done big money. They were very popular as and part of Infinity War in particular. To see an opening like that, not great. Now, I was going to make this video last week, but then I was interested to see what happened in the second weekend. If it had a sort of 70% odd drop, the same as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, then yeah, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. As it is, it only dropped 47%, which is, I think I read, it's like the second best hold for an MCU movie in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So it looks like it's got legs. It's got, there's been strong word of mouth. People are really enjoying the movie. Its final box office take when it gets there, it should be pretty good. It should be round about what Guardians Volume 2 made. I imagine it might just about get there. Which again, though, it's not an upward trend, which is what Marvel would want to see. Then looking into the future, the next movie we get is The Marvels, coming in November. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Say, obviously, Captain Marvel did over $1 billion. I suspect it's going to perform like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm not convinced it's going to make the $1 billion. Be interesting. Then obviously next year we get Captain America: New World Order. Now, say the Cap movies were billion-dollar movies, but obviously, Steve Rogers has gone, and we've now got Sam instead. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I can't see that being a billion-dollar movie either, unless the reviews are absolutely fantastic for it. Thunderbolts again next year, sort of an unknown quantity. It's sort of like an anti-Avengers. I mean, it's a team up of all the sort of villains, anti-heroes that we've had so far. Yelena, the Red Guardian, things like that. So yeah, that one's going to be interesting. And then supposedly with Blade, but it seems to be much delayed. And now with the writers' strike, it's just been announced that it's been delayed again. So I suspect we won't get that next year. So that's all the facts and figures. And yes, we can see that on the main part, the Marvel movies are not performing now as well as they have been. So what are the reasons for that? I mean, say COVID, or you already mentioned it. I see the movies released during the pandemic had a much smaller box office. No surprise there at all. And there are still people who aren't going back to the cinema. Takings are not as much overall as they were before, not just Marvel movies, but just in general. So, obviously that is going to have impacted. And Disney Plus, I don't think it could be overstated how much of an impact that has had. We're in a cost of living crisis. People have got less of a disposable income. Ticket prices, obviously go up year on year, and people are now paying subscriptions to lots of different streaming channels, Disney Plus being one of them. And they now know that an MCU movie comes out, and then literally 2.5, 3 months later, at the most, it will be on Disney Plus that they're already paying for, and a lot of people are happy now to stay at home and watch them on their TV. That's absolutely got to be affecting the box office in some way. Then we've got this issue of superhero fatigue. Everyone keeps writing about on the internet. I'm not sure how much that factors into it. Certainly, I think for some people, yes, they're not going to go to the cinema every time to watch a Marvel movie, especially. But I think I don't think that's just as much superhero fatigue as Endgame was a natural sort of ending point. It was a culmination of 10 years worth of movies, over 20 movies leading into it, and it finished it off perfectly. For some people, that has been the point where maybe the Marvel movies haven't become as important and big, must get there on opening weekend sort of events. Because don't forget, not only did we lose Tony Stark, Steve Rogers is out of the picture, Black Widow died, Vision's gone as well. So a lot of the big popular characters, especially obviously Iron Man, has been shown by the figures being one of Marvel's biggest money makers. Obviously, with them now gone, and we're bringing all these new heroes, I think it's just taking a bit of time for the things to ramp back up again. And don't forget, we've also had the DC superhero movies at the same time. None of them really ever sort of reaching the heights that Marvel did. DC tried to sort of run before they could walk, and immediately bring out a Justice League movie, bringing all their big heroes together before they sort of introduced them all individually. But they had some big hits. The first Wonder Woman movie, 823 million. Aquaman, 1.1 billion. Not quite sure why Aquaman all of a sudden suddenly become $1 billion movie. But yeah, people went for it in a big way. But then after that, they've tailed off massively, far worse than Marvel. I mean, Wonder Woman 1984, again, that came out during COVID. 169 million, though. It's absolutely a paltry box office. Shazam, 368 million, was okay probably for what it was. But then Shazam Fury of the Gods, which came out with 133 mil. So, that's totally fallen off a cliff. Black Adam, only 393 mil. A great deal for a movie that was sort of so hyped with The Rock in his first big sort of superhero movie. But then, with the DC movies, they'd already said that the Snyderverse was over, so these sort of films are sort of tacked on to the end, and people already know that these aren't actually sort of going to link up with the new James Gunn DC extended universe. Hardly surprising, really, that that there's not a lot of money to be had there. Plus, we also had the Sony Spider-Man movies that don't feature Spider-Man. I'm not quite sure how they thought they were ever going to be massive hits. Just sort of introducing Spidey's villains. I'm assuming they're hoping that at some point Marvel will then let Spidey appear in like a Sinister Six movie and bring all the villains together. Whether that will actually happen, I don't know, because they keep releasing these movies and they don't do massive business. I'm not sure if just the Spidey name will then sort of bring them all together, but we'll see. So what does Marvel need to do going forward? I think they're going to change their release strategies. We've already seen the Marvels being put back to November. People have complained that a lot of the visual effects in some of the later films haven't been as good. And the effects artists have complained the deadlines have been ridiculous. So I think personally we will go to a 2-movie and a 2-TV show release per year. I think that, as I said before, with Blade being delayed because of the writer's strikes, I think next year we will get Captain America: New World Order and Thunderbolts, and I think that will be the only movies. And strangely, they announced today that Loki season 2 was going to start streaming in October, but then in November, Echo, the character sort of coming from the Hawkeye show, they're going to be dumping all the episodes all at once in November, which is the first time they've ever done that. It's strange. It's almost as if they want to dump it, get it out. I don't know. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they've realised that not every character needs a big event series. I don't think Ms. Marvel really warranted all the episodes that she got. So yeah, I'm wondering, it's sort of being dumped all in one go. And I think from that sort of leads me to believe, yeah, I reckon next year, I think 2 seasons of a TV show and 2 movies. That's my prediction. That's the way they will go. So they're not overcrowding the market and buying into the superhero fatigue. The other big conclusion to take from this is make a good movie. It's sort of shocking that's not really a big secret. If you make a good movie, people will go and see it. Say people loved Spider-Man No Way Home, 1.9 billion, say, coming out of the pandemic. All the films before it, earning nowhere near what the previous films have been doing. Obviously, everyone's got their own, tastes and opinions, but overall, it does seem to be that people are sort of saying that the quality of the movies has dipped, and the sort, and the box office reflects that. Now, again, though, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, people like the movie, and it is doing better. Whether it's going to get up to the heights of Guardians Volume 2, we will see. But come away from the MCU, see Top Gun Maverick. People absolutely loved it, and it made a huge amount of money. And obviously Avatar 2, becoming one of the highest grossing films of all time. People loved it, and they went to see it in their droves multiple times. So, ultimately, you can say, it's not rocket science. If you make a good movie, people will come and watch it. So hopefully going forward, the MCU is going to reduce its slate and not produce as many movies per year. I know Bob Iger, the head of Disney, has said they're not going to be spending as much money on productions for Disney Plus. So yeah, as I said before, I think we will go down to a 2-movie, 2-series pattern going forward, which, as I say, hopefully will improve the overall quality. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with me? Is superhero fatigue a thing? Are Marvel in big trouble? I don't really think they are. They're going through a general malaise at the moment, but it could be, maybe people need to lower their expectations with Disney Plus now in place, and people would rather wait to watch a movie in the comfort of their own home. Maybe that is just how things are going to be going forward. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment below. Always good to hear other people's opinions. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, take care, eat geek, and be merry.